So there is a film that displays a nuclear test, but we're not sure. We're going to talk all about it here. Man in the High Castle, Season 2, Episode 9 and 10. It's here, it's live, it's next.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AfterBuzz TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Hello, and welcome to AfterBuzz TV's coverage of Man in the High Castle, Season 2, Episodes 9 and 10. I'm your host, Steve Kaufman. You can find me on Twitter, at Steve Kaufman. That is Kaufmann, but I'm not alone. We are full strength here.
You had me struggling there for a second on like how to spell your name. It's like, what comes next? M-A, oh yeah, man, huh. Okay, I'm Courtney Anderson. You can find me on Instagram or Twitter at Cohen, C-O-U-H-E-N.
And what's up? My name is Carrie Lane. You can find me online at Carrie D Lane, and we'll continue the spelling of it. You can find me at K-A-R-I-D-L-A-N-E. For those of you listening who can't see the title
names,
on our anyway.
So,
But you could watch. You could always.
Yep.
let them find it. Give them all the tools they need to find you. So we're covering 9 and 10, titled Detonation and Fallout, very respectively.
Appropriate.
Yes.
Appropriately.
Yeah.
How do we feel about how Season 2 has ended?
Satisfied.
Oh, so satisfied.
That was my word. I'm not hungry yet for Season 3.
Mm-hmm.
Satisfied.
I could get down with that word. Also,
that was the word that came to mind.
and it reminds me of the season finale of Season 1, that it left a lot of questions, a lot of loose ends.
See, I don't have questions. I mean, well, you do. Okay.
Karen.
Okay. No, I do have questions. That's out of context. I'm not going, what the what? Like I was at the end of Season 1.
Not shocking questions. Yeah,
Which is kind of crazy considering how it ends.
Oh, yeah. No,
why don't I have more immediate questions? I don't know. I just am like satisfied with the way it ended.
Well, I guess the show primed you in a way that you're like, they actually covered a lot of ground and tied up enough.
exactly.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. There's enough.
I like that it was such a slow burn show, and those last 2 episodes were like, oh, this is the exciting ending I've been waiting for, of just so much like shocking this, shocking that. And I mean, maybe if it wasn't that big of a deal, but because of how slow the rest of the show goes, when those reveal moments happened, I was like sitting there like, oh my gosh.
Do you think, because I've been kind of going back and forth internally, do you think that they could have given us some of that sooner and it wouldn't have taken away?
Possibly.
Does that make sense?
Well, it felt like so much was jam-packed in the last 2 of exciting that you could have sprinkled that maybe a little sooner.
I would argue there's a lot less excitement in other parts of the second season, that they feel they had X amount of excitement and they gave 85 to 90% of it, they gave it to you in episode 9.
Yes.
Where that's all the excitement, the explosions, the everything, and everything else is just kind of very subtle character development.
But do you think they could have, like, with everything that they kind of explain and reveal to us in 9 and in 10, do you think that they could have given us some in 7 or 8? You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
I think the traditional 10 episode structure allows you to pretty much blow everything up at 9.
Yeah.
But that seems to be the way. I think there could have been more exciting things leading into episode 9, but I've also been following the behind the scenes of the show, that it seems like they've had a very full roster of producers, that when they lost an executive producer between 1 and 2, that they never named another one. They were just like, nope, everybody here's awesome.
On board.
That
Understands.
anything you may have to say about maybe there could have been more excitement earlier on. I think part of it is it was a group of people whose job it would have been to do that now also have to facilitate running a whole show.
Gotcha. Okay.
But that's what many are saying. That's what many are saying now, of when you have any mild criticism for this season, which this season is as good, or if not better, as Season 1.
I thought it was extremely engaging, or at least it's also, you need that build-up from the beginning so that at the end you're just like captivated by everything that's happening. Like, oh my gosh, this matters so much because we've watched all these other pieces fall into place earlier.
See, I didn't feel like, as exciting as they were, I didn't feel like they were these high-stake moments.
Come on, when like
don't
the
know.
Prime Minister was gonna go to the building, I was like, is he gonna get in there? And then like, oh shit, when he shoots a gun, and you're just like, oh, like so
Well,
many
okay,
moments.
so I'm thinking more like, I feel like they could have let Joe know about Juliana.
That seems...
No, that was I
He would
liked
have run back.
that moment.
If he knew Juliana was alive, he would have ran back to New York the first second he
Exactly.
had.
But
He
I-
also would have never slept with Nicole and gotten
Yeah.
that huge, acid trip we all enjoyed.
See, that could have still happened, I think.
He could have found out about Juliana
Yeah,
after.
I mean, I feel like
but then he
there's...
would have never.
But I feel like
I think
he would have chosen... Well, I don't know.
He would have
that's
chosen
what-
Juliana.
now he needs to save New York more so because Juliana's still alive. Because it made those stakes higher.
Yes.
Okay, maybe the Joe, the Frank and Ed thing could have been revealed sooner.
Yes.
Definitely.
Because that was a big reveal for their friendship, but then it led to more excitement for Frank essentially going to commit suicide.
Yeah.
Which that was like,
What?
he's
Huh?
huh?
Man?
And then,
Huh?
actually other suicide, essentially Thomas too. All that effort his parents do to protect him, and they didn't save him from himself.
But I watched the behind the scenes that they put, and they talk about how, you know, this show as a whole and like just the tone of it, everything comes at a cost.
Sure.
And so he was taught to be so righteous to the Nazi Reich, it cost him his life. It cost
Yeah.
his parents
Well-
their son.
Well, he's a good product of their community.
Right.
and
Because,
then-
well, I mean, but that's not even their community as much as just his parents. Like, his dad ingrained in him that, like,
Well,
the
and
Reich
but
comes
also
first.
ideology. The ideology of the Reich is very similar to the ideology of communist or socialist, where you, the individual, isn't as important as all the individuals working together to make the thing move. Whereas
right.
us as Americans have a lot of trouble identifying with some of these characters because we don't, we value individualism a lot compared
yeah.
to other
Oh.
countries.
Yeah.
That
Right.
the Thomas character doing that would make a lot, like when they play this show in other countries, I think that the Thomas character doing that would make a bit more sense to people from another country.
It's not that it doesn't make sense. It's just
It seems
He's-
sudden to us.
no. He's such
I
a
wasn't-
perfect product of his environment, his parents, and his
Yeah.
teaching, and his like whole world. That's absolutely what he'd do because he believes so 100% in that value system that of course he would do it. I just actually thought he was going to kill himself, like he would have shot himself or something
Yeah.
like
Oh,
that.
versus, like, turning himself
turning himself
into...
in. So I was waiting for that. But now, do you guys think him doing that might push his father to be more anti the Reich because that's what killed his son ultimately?
No.
I
Not more so, because I feel like I think he kind of is against the Reich. I mean, I feel like more like Juliana than we think, in the sense that ultimately when it came time to make decisions, he took self-interest first. He protected his son first when he had to. But as long as it's not going to be, you know, out of his way to stay in line, then he'll do it. You know, and so I think that,
Okay.
But I think that, you know, him going to Berlin, and we're definitely kind of like meshing episodes
Yes.
here.
no, we're good.
But, you know, but him going to Berlin
Yeah.
kind of shows that, I think, because I don't think he did that. I mean, he did that because it was for the greater good of people and of, like, his community, not necessarily the Reich.
Yeah,
I
I
think, I mean-
and I think the way they started episode 10 left me with two things. One, it made it very clear that he is about him and his family.
Oh yeah.
More so than
Yeah.
anything else. And two, does anyone else think that Thomas, because she was pregnant with Thomas in that scene, and they were
Yeah.
very close to a nuclear blast.
You know, I wondered that too.
I'm very curious where it's like, no, a nuclear blast by the
Well,
Reich caused a birth defect in my child that they then claim is a
Yeah.
useless eater.
No. Well, the thing is, I thought that too, exactly 100%. But later, Helen reveals your brother had
Yeah,
it. You
John's
have
brother.
it.
Oh, okay.
John's
So it's
brother
a
it is,
had
it is a hereditary
Yeah.
thing.
So, yeah.
But I
so
told the
John
same
doesn't.
thing.
John doesn't have it.
No.
He,
Oh,
but
okay.
he's a
carries the
carrier.
gene.
Okay.
And then,
Yes.
oh, it was so
she
sad.
was blaming
Yes.
him before he went to Berlin. Was it right before he went to Berlin? Yeah.
Because he's like, I'm leaving, and then she's like, it's your fault.
Yeah. And now my daughters may have or pass on to their kids.
Yes.
So my daughters may have to go through what I'm going through.
Yeah.
And that's before she even knew she was losing her son.
Oh.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh my gosh. I was like, my power couple, they're arguing. I like them as a couple. And so I was just so like, oh no, she's so mad at him, but she's not really wrong. And then he's like, I love you. And I'm like, oh great, is something bad going to happen? But I think
That was definitely a goodbye. I love you.
Oh, it
That's
was.
such a
And I'm
goodbye.
like, you need to say I love you back to him. Come on. But I was thinking
Didn't
this
even
might
think
make this might make him want to go back more and be more anti-Reich though, because when he finds out his son dies because of the system. Because he knows before then. That's the problem. Him and his wife know a world before that ideology. So I was thinking that maybe I'm curious that for the next season is if he would not necessarily like leave the Reich, but want to change some of the policies or something.
But that's why I don't think he's anti-Reich, because I feel like the Reich as we've known it doesn't exist anymore. Because Hitler's
mean?
gone.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
And,
it's
like,
in
the
a world
Reich-
of change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm
it
saying
could-
so I don't think he's anti-Reich, because I think that this time, I mean, and the fact that he was able to go get Joseph's father, found out and kind of put all these pieces
Yeah.
together, that he'll have some sort of role and be able to help affect change. And so
Yes, there we
the
go,
thing
yeah.
that's so upsetting, so I think he'll be more pro-Reich in the sense that he'll be able to stay within it and have more power to make positive change.
Because
In the way that we would see
the
change being positive.
The eugenics and the ideology that made Thomas want to call
himself, yeah.
want to
Yes.
call the government on
Yes.
himself and have them come and get him. That ideology likely died with Hitler.
I
Hopefully.
think so.
I think Himmler may have some of it, but like if
I mean, because even
but Smith is
Houseman had it too.
but even the doctor, kind of was like, look, like,
But they're like, this is
you
the
need
rule.
some time. No, but I mean, because the doctor's like, I'm going to be found out and like I'm going to be the one that gets killed or
Yeah.
punished if they find out I let you go. But he had enough of a heart to say, look, like,
Yeah.
tell your son or do it yourself, kind of like he was trying to be humane about it for the family's sake. And so I do think that that's a little bit proof or
Yeah.
evidence that they were kind of more in that mindset. And that's the thing for me that was way more heartbreaking than any of it was, Thomas, like you're turning yourself in, and it may be too late because you've turned yourself in, but you wouldn't have had to die because of the
Well,
I was
changes
thinking
Now
that
he
that
you
knows.
too. Well,
now
or the
that
fact-
doesn't mean he did die though. Like they may be able to
No,
somehow
they might go get him. Or
You
the
know what I'm
fact his
saying?
dad
Yeah.
is so powerful now
Exactly.
that they'll leave him alone. I thought that
Well,
too.
I
Possibly.
think that it's possible that early on in season 3 that they'll show basically that something happens and it's delayed and I don't know if
Yeah.
so something happens that it's delayed to where then they're either able to get him out or the law changes to where
Or Smith
there's-
lobbies to get the law
Right,
changed.
yeah.
Because I think whether
Oh yeah, the
whether
law's going
Thomas-
to change because of Smith.
Yeah,
That's
whether
no
Thomas
question.
lives or doesn't, the law is going to change because of Smith. Because Smith is, I guess, in the circle of trust within the high command
Well,
at this
and
point. And
he-
we'll,
And
Yeah.
it said he was the first American to receive that honor that he got while he was there.
Yes.
so he's definitely high ranking there, and I'm
What?
sure there was an anti-American sentiment under the old Reich.
Yeah.
I do want to
he-
jump. I
yeah.
do want to jump back into the alternate reality 1962 and point out something that I should have noticed earlier,
What?
which is I think what they're trying to say with this
Wait,
multiverse.
in the alternate reality?
or
Where-
the hour 1962, the Cuban Missile Crisis
Okay.
1962. What they're implying is that the Cuban Missile Crisis happened on the same day in the Tagami 1962 that would have alternately been the same day that Hitler died. That they're saying that although you can live in a multiverse, there are dates where events happen that world leadership, world sentiment can change. So I think that's for better or for worse.
So it doesn't matter what event it is, but around that time,
There are-
something will happen.
There
to
are
change the
times
world.
in
Oh, okay.
dates so that there, let's say there are infinite amounts of that day in 1962. The
Okay.
two we've seen
Okay.
and we're familiar with, one is that the Nazi Party existed,
Right.
Hitler was still alive, and he died on that day.
Okay.
And then all the other stuff we're following happens. The other that we're all still very well aware of is the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Okay.
The Cuban Missile Crisis being a very focal point in world history because it was the first time a world leader didn't have a playbook to follow.
Right.
That Kennedy literally just had to, I don't know. Nobody knows.
Right.
Nobody knows. I just have to
That's
try.
true, yeah.
I have to try to peacefully work towards
Yeah.
a way where we're not like all out nuclear war.
Yeah.
I hope I didn't paraphrase the Cuban Missile Crisis. That's my.
That's right, yeah.
There was a movie that explained it.
Oh gosh.
But Tagami
movie.
sees that.
Yeah.
And Tagami's been conflicted this whole time.
Sure.
Because he's essentially in a 1962 where the only person that's really not better off is him.
So what did you think about him when he
Sort
pulled
of.
Juliana outside? And
Yeah, that Juliana.
He didn't even say bye to his son.
said goodbye to her. Well, not even really say goodbye. Just said, I'm leaving.
No, he said goodbye. Yeah.
Well, but I mean,
In his way.
like, yeah. Well, it's like,
yeah.
so, and basically said, like, they need me more. I mean,
They need me more.
He had something
and
he has to do. Yeah.
I got somewhere to be. Sorry, girl.
and because we talked about it last time, what did you think? I think you mentioned how it wasn't really addressed at all. How long? Well, first of all, how much time had passed and how long he'd been sort of missing, or
We presume season 1's or season 2's worth of events he had been missing and not at his desk.
so they address
or
it.
at his house, because they said they sent someone to his house.
So they address it with like a throwaway
one
line.
yeah.
Oh, that was frustrating.
Okay, I was
That
gonna
was
say, was that
frustrating.
satisfying?
I
Because
was satisfied enough because we were like, we need somebody to say something. And then they go, we were wondering where you were.
Well, but it was, your disappearance was a matter of great concern, and I'm like,
And it's like, but you haven't showed any storyline
Okay, then in
convincing
that
us
case,
of that.
yeah.
Major concern.
to be fair, it might not have been useful to the story they were telling to show us
Yeah.
them kicking in the door to his house,
But
interviewing his wife.
again,
Like,
in 8 episodes, they couldn't give us like another line or something earlier on to
something
like.
somewhere, somewhere to explain. Like, no, we're
Was
still
he
looking.
really gone for 8 episodes?
No.
Oh, okay.
Well, I guess.
I didn't think it was that long because the only thing he didn't know about was the recent escalation of war. So I felt he was only maybe gone for like 2-3 episodes, which is maybe like a few days / up to a month max.
Because he ended season 1 in this alternate reality and came back, and then I think he went back around episode 4.
Okay, and then
So he
this
was
is
gone.
9,
Yeah,
so
he was
5
gone the
episodes.
majority of it.
He was gone the majority.
But he came back in the
He came back
in the middle of the first 8,
Yeah.
Yeah,
7 maybe.
but
he might have shown
the
up.
timeline roughly, as I think about it, while he was gone, was at least 3 weeks.
Okay, so
Because it was the Yakuza debt, it was a lot of things.
yeah.
It was the Yakuza
Yeah.
debt, which was at least a week. And then, like, actually paying the Yakuza debt, and then the
But would he have
resistance,
really
they go
been,
in 3
like-
weeks.
And the whole bomb thing and yeah.
Yeah. But would he really need to know about the Yakuza situation?
No, I'm just saying.
No, we're saying that we're just
we're-
that for the timeline of like how long he was missing.
We're nitpicking.
yeah.
We're
But
nitpicking. We want.
the only thing I was getting at was last week we talked about how satisfying even a line would be, and then we get our line and it was not satisfying to me.
It wasn't
enough for
I
me.
was like,
I mean, to say that your disappearance was of grave importance implies that they were sending in the dogs. We just didn't see it. I think, like, Smith saying something at some point would have been nice to be like,
okay.
or one of his underlings when it pertained to everything, and I wouldn't
Wait,
be
why
surprised.
would Smith say anything about the
Because
trade
he's
minister?
the trade minister, and he's the trade minister, and he would have dealings with that trade minister on a weekly basis,
Smith?
right? Smith would have deal.
In New York, Smith?
I think so, right?
No way.
Okay.
They never met each other. Keto is all the time with him, and
Okay,
also
That's
is
you're right.
considered-
though, right?
But they're
Trade minister and Keto would be the ones that,
Fair
like,
enough.
Keto's in the same building, and he often came by and bothered
Yeah.
him.
But like the West Coast and the East Coast would have to do trade. So there's
Trade
somebody.
minister never seemed to do much with them, though.
That's fair.
More in the first season.
Yeah, not this.
Did you see more like the international or kind of like actual trade dealings?
Something.
The most he did was with the German, like the Berlin helper defector guy when the Crown Prince was shot. That's about the most we saw
Yeah.
him deal with like the Reich.
Yeah.
Otherwise, not really. I just
We could have fabricated something because I would.
Oh.
It's within reason that the trade minister of that half of the landmass, the continent,
Right.
would be dealing with someone who is a trade
dealing
commander,
with- yeah. I
felt
the
that-
Ministry of Trade.
they didn't really interact that much though in terms of just the Reich
Yeah.
and the Japanese occupied area in terms of like not wanting to, like, they're allies, quote unquote, but it didn't really seem like they peaceably ever wanted to,
I
like,
wonder.
exchange, just because of how much when Juliana gets over there and like how much they don't know about the Pacific states, feels like there's not a lot of trade between them. I felt like
That makes
trade
more sense.
minister is more of
international.
a title rather than like, you know,
I
they
really wonder
actually
now.
deal with other countries.
Let us know in
But
the
he
comments.
just-
I'm very curious
I liked his
what the
disappear,
trade was
though.
like.
He just had this poof disappear, like Juliana turned around and he was gone. But then I like, what about the reveal of like his assistant is from the other world?
Oh,
Because
that
he had
was
the
awesome.
hands. Yes. Because I think we all talked about that. We're like, wait a minute, how do you get those things? And he's like, you're not from this world, are you? Or something like that. And you're like, oh, finally people are talking about it.
That was something we should have That was something we should have noticed before
Yeah.
episode 9.
Yeah.
To be like, oh yeah, his assistant.
Although if you go back and watch it, it would be interesting to see how much they let you onto that. You know what I mean? Like knowing how much would you really be able to notice it? Because it's got to be somewhat intentional that
It's a close-up
They-
shot he
Yeah.
had of his hand and he covered it up and
I
stuff.
was
But
also-
you're like, where's that from?
I couldn't find anyone on notice, but I was also very interested if I wanted to find a host around here who had watched Man in the High Castle but binged it like a lot of people do. That I would be very interested to see how their impression of everything we're talking about, if they had watched it all in a weekend.
yeah.
True.
like,
Maybe
did they-
we wouldn't
did they-
feel it's even a slow burn if you watched it in a binge session.
I'm pretty sure if you watched 10 episodes in a
Yeah.
weekend, it wouldn't feel like...
No.
That
That's
moves really...
probably that's a good point.
That moves
Yeah.
quickly. Because I watched it all in one
Yeah.
sitting.
What about then, speaking of the trade minister, what about him and Lem?
Yes.
Lem, right? At the end of him showing up with the films? Ah!
That's the huge reveal. I can't wait to
That was
dive into
exciting.
some predictions.
So I'm a
So-
friend of Juliana.
We're going to wind up back at Juliana. We talked about Thomas. We talked
Yeah.
about Takami coming back and his...
Oh, yeah.
Takami coming back and deciding to use the footage of Bikini Atoll, which is not... It's a nuclear test. It's not actually nuclear... It's the nuclear test from an alternate universe, but he devises a plan.
Well, nobody seems to think it's from an alternate universe.
Right.
Well,
So,
who would think that?
Why would they?
Yeah.
Right.
but then that worked perfectly.
All my Instagrams are from an alternate universe. Is all I'm gonna say.
It's just an alternate
Okay,
fact.
Steve.
I can't get one pun. All right.
You can have it.
While we're on the West Coast, let's talk about Frank and the Resistance.
All I'll say is, well, I don't want to talk about Frank and the Resistance. The scene where we see Juliana and Ed meet,
Oh, that was
that's
so
wonderful.
sweet.
like that. There's something about when her hair is longer. She makes his face at one point like so charmingly, like looks up at Frank after he goes and gets the cup so they can
Yeah.
cheers or whatever. And I just was like, maybe I was wrong. Maybe Team Frank.
Oh,
You know, it was
yeah.
just like
Well, they're
that
even,
moment.
Their little triad of friendship of like the three of us, and I was like,
Yes.
I enjoyed seeing that scene a lot. I also enjoyed
oh, that the accident was not an accident; it was a suicide.
That
Another
made-
suicide, actually.
that made sense.
I was
Yes.
so surprised. I was like, what? I mean, the way she explained it, I go, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Right.
But we had no reason to think before that, like, Juliana had wanted to kill herself.
Right.
Because the emotional weight of not being able to carry a child because of that accident, at least to me, acted as a subterfuge. Acted as a subterfuge that whenever anyone asked her about that accident and she felt really sad about it, that's just what I figured it was. Things are making sounds.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So we're not talking about what she was like pre-accident. Just saying afterwards, she was more upset that she couldn't get pregnant because
No,
of
I'm
the
saying
accident.
that's
She
what
was
we
trying
would.
to kill herself.
No, I'm saying that's what we would think.
Okay.
That's what we would think.
That's what
she
you
would,
think.
That's what up until that moment, that's what I thought she was sad about.
That
She couldn't have kids because of the accident.
Correct.
she caused on purpose.
Well, no,
Correct.
he didn't know that. He's just saying,
none
in
of us knew
general,
that.
Oh.
she was sad because she couldn't have kids after
Because
the
of this
accident.
accident. Okay.
Now, finding out she was the reason for the accident
Okay.
makes it even more
that's all
intense.
I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. That for the last close to 2 seasons,
Yeah.
every time someone talked to Juliana about that accident, she was really sad. It seemed like a really sensitive and
Well,
private
Guess
subject.
what?
And why don't you want
in
kids?
the other world,
She
has
has
kids.
Baby. Yeah.
because that's probably a want.
Oh.
That's probably a want of hers.
I never thought of that.
Sure.
I'm not sure how that is relevant
I'm sure
to
it's
the
emotionally
films, but
I'm sure it's emotionally devastating.
yeah.
It also makes a conversation, I think, when she had with the ladies at Smith's house of like, oh, don't you want kids or something like that? And she's kind of sitting there going, well. You know, it's not
when
that
they
I
said,
don't
yeah,
want
it's
'em.
like
Yeah.
all the rage and kind of the expectation here in the Reich.
And she's like,
Babies.
I just was so surprised that her character was ready to, I'm so alone. And then in that sense, though, she ends her thing with the man in the high castle at the end of like, I'm all alone. And so she has some issues of being alone.
But the loneliness in this universe
Yeah.
tends to just strive through.
But she's not alone, is she?
Ooh, that
Because that reveal, what'd you guys think of that? I know we're getting a little ahead on that, but whatever.
I don't actually have thoughts. I'm gonna save it for predictions and for the end of the conversation. But I'm gonna prep you. I'm very curious to know what we think if she's dead. If Karen never died in the pilot.
Trudy?
Yes, Trudy. If Trudy never died.
I was like, Karen? Who's Karen?
I don't know. If Trudy never
You
died.
said Karen earlier, too, and I'm like,
Well, no, that's the woman
Yeah,
that-
Karen was the woman who died at the
the
beginning of second
Juliana,
season.
yeah. Like the
Yes.
I can't think of her name, but
Yes.
the
Oh, the
woman
blonde.
Dixon worked with.
Yes.
Yes, that's that.
Like
was Karen.
couldn't. That's
what
why
I
she
mean.
was killing Juliana.
It's not directly her fault.
Not even a
It's
little.
that
actually
woman's
worse. It's the
gonna
driver
blame her.
guy's fault.
No, it's that guy's fault.
Yeah.
Completely.
It's not Juliana's
Trudy,
fault.
do we
Yeah.
think? Be ready. I'll ask it now. Do we think that Trudy?
Is actually alive.
Well, she's
Well, we
actually
saw
alive.
her,
She's
yeah.
actually alive. We saw her. Do we think the Trudy we saw is from an alternate 1962 and came back, or do we think the Trudy that we met in the pilot never died?
Never died.
Could the Trudy we met before be from the alternate, and then this one is like the real one?
You just created a third answer.
Yeah, I did.
Or that.
But that's another one.
Or that one.
I think it's the same Trudy. I think that because the man in the high castle knew that things had to happen this very specific way, that they took Trudy. The resistance took Trudy, and I don't know if they kept her prisoner. I don't know if they to let this happen. I mean, but it's hard to know because was the resistance in on it, or did the man in the high castle have her somewhere?
Well, the Kempetai were the ones who shot her, that from our perspective and Juliana's perspective.
Correct.
So I don't think the resistance could have faked that. So I'm going to go with maybe the one who died is from the alternate world somehow.
If there were, given there are three possible outcomes,
Yeah.
I'll pick the third one.
Yeah. And so the one we see right now is the real one that Juliana knows. The one who died is from somewhere else.
No, that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
I'm saying the
No,
Trudy.
yeah.
I'm saying the Trudy we're seeing now
It's from
is
an
from
alternate?
an alternate 1962, but she's been briefed.
Okay.
She's
That's possible too.
She's been briefed and I guess doesn't like that 1962 and wants to come and help the other one.
Well, if she still has her sister in the alternate world and knowing, like, hey, your sister, you died in this alternate version and we need you to help your sister, she might be
That's-
like, absolutely,
That's
I
a
will help.
succinct briefing, actually. We'll fill you in on the rest, but
Your sister needs you.
the Nazis
She's alive.
won. The Nazis won. You live on the West Coast, which is now under Japanese rule. Your sister was a part of the resistance, and
But
she's
they're
no
in New
longer
York,
with us.
right?
She's no longer with us. You have to
Yeah,
go.
they're in New York right
I think she was fleeing to the neutral zone. Juliana was
Yes.
fleeing to the
Oh,
neutral
true,
zone,
they're
so
in the
it's,
neutral
zone.
so it's wherever. I'm just
Yeah.
saying how you can brief her in
Yeah,
three.
yeah.
How you can brief her in the most succinct way possible.
Yeah.
It would be about 5 sentences.
I just like that she was back in a way of like, I'm like, she's alive? But then I go, then
It
you go,
wasn't-
oh, wait, there could be an alternate one.
It wasn't super shocking to me. Not that I in any way
Oh,
anticipated
I
it or thought that was going to
Yeah.
happen. But it was just, I don't know. And maybe it's just because that's the nature of the show. Like, you're just never going to kind of know what's next. But I was just like, oh, of course Trudy's still alive. Okay.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know. Maybe I had my
Other-
heightened
other
emotions during
things-
this both episodes.
No,
I was so like,
I had a similar.
so excited.
And then
yeah.
felt stupid because I was like, but
No,
you're watching a
don't
show.
feel stupid.
You're watching a show that told you there's a multiverse, and you can somehow get films from each of them, and
Yeah,
they don't
but
tell you
we-
why. They probably will never tell you
Right.
why. But you went because somebody came back from the dead.
Yeah, but so far we haven't ever seen it where somebody goes, gets someone and brings them back.
Agreed.
So
there's also a lot of secrecy behind the Resistance and the Man in the High Castle.
Yes.
That's
Right.
likely happened, and we
Yeah.
just have never seen it.
and so far
and
the
that
only
this-
people who traveled are like people who did it by accident almost.
Yeah, all the ones that we're seeing.
Yeah.
And I think it's also interesting and very good storytelling. They've given us such depth and such breadth. Mm-hmm. But it feels like the tip of the iceberg, and it always has.
Sure.
It feels like there's this vastness that we haven't even seen yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they haven't set specific rules about the different
And they never
verses.
will. I
No.
hope they never do. I mean, I'm probably going to
That
read
will drive me
I'm probably
crazy.
going to read the book between season 2 and 3.
Yeah.
And I'll be very disappointed if the book or anything else brings it up, that it's like, nope, we have rules. We have rules. No, this way. You can't go that way. You only
But
have
there
access
have
to
to be
4
rules.
universes. There's a punch card. You get a free Subway.
Oh, come
You get a free
on.
Subway sandwich.
Okay,
but-
wait, hold on. You skipped.
There are
you didn't want to
rules.
talk about it, but why didn't you want to talk about what happens with Frank? I know you're like, I don't
the
want
Frank
say
and the
that.
Resist. Frank
Yeah.
and the
Oh,
Resist. She
no,
said she
it
didn't
wasn't
want
that I
to
didn't want to talk about that.
Oh.
The comment I had in the moment was about Frank and Julia and
Yeah,
Ed
and-
meeting.
oh,
It wasn't.
that was
So
good.
that's why I was just like, I don't want to talk about them because the thing I'm about to say is not about
Oh.
Frank and the Resistance.
Although
Not
it
that I
is-
don't want to talk
It
about
is
Frank
now
and the
time to
Resistance.
talk
Oh, that's
about
true.
Frank the Resistance, the Kempe Tot car,
Let's do
Yes.
it.
all the things.
All
Go.
the things.
No, I think Frank accepting death is pretty gripping.
I'm not surprised. I liked his little speech of like, I've already seen myself die. I've pictured it a few times, and I want to go kill the guy who killed my sister. Though, real quick though, oh my goodness, is he that bad of a shot? I could have sworn he shot Keto in the chest, because it was more like a chest, not like you hit my arm. And he only did like one shot. I thought he got 2. So when Keto was like, I'm alive, I'm like, what?
Maybe Keto wears a bulletproof vest.
I had a moment that I maybe wondered that then, because I'm like, it looked, the way it was filmed, it looked like he got shot like right above his heart. And then he's fine.
I have to go back and watch
And
the
then the
footage.
doctor
watch a replay.
person was doing his arm.
Yeah.
So
Because
then
if
I'm
you
like,
think about
what?
it, if you got shot in the arm, your body would still
It would
flail
still-
like that.
But it looked like a chest shot. I mean, I didn't necessarily like see like and look for the
Right.
squib explosion or whatever, but I felt it was more of a lethal shot than it was. So I was
What did you think about the
semi-disappointed.
plan?
Good plan.
I
Really?
I
the
liked
Kempe
it.
tire's still there. Like, the Kempe tire's still...
No, but that's such a lethal blow to them, literally.
I think, similar to the breadth of this show,
Mm-hmm.
the vastness, this explosion doesn't actually account for much in the grand scheme of...
Well, I
They
mean,
didn't
think
destroy
about
it.
The other
Yeah.
resistance people, though, look, we went to their headquarters and destroyed them. We got rid of a general. We got rid of all the people.
Mm-hmm.
They're all in that
But
room, luckily in a meeting.
I get what you're saying in the sense that in another conversation, San Francisco as a whole just didn't exist anymore.
That's fair.
You know what I mean? Like in other people's conversations, it was like there may not be a San Francisco if this war happened. You know what I mean? So the fact that it's only this headquartered building is pretty minor.
and they
it's
killed,
major,
They
like you
killed
said.
a really bad dude in Okada.
Yes.
Onada, it's Onada.
Oh, nada. Yeah.
Not-
My ends look
And
like
the thing,
caves from
though,
back there.
too, the other thing is if that guy's dead, depending on who rises in charge, they might be more conservative and not be rushing to do as much damage. Like, for example, Smith is like not as much of a purist in terms of like we need to keep the pure race.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe him in charge more is like radical. Same thing with like
Well, they
Keto.
said,
He's
yeah.
a little more reined in as well. He's not like Onada of being like is rushed
Yeah.
and doing things.
And I think
so
there's also-
it'll be better.
There's also something they've always explored in this show, which is Onada and anyone German born essentially has this pride nationalism.
Okay.
And nationalism is kind of first. So Onada's saying like we're just gonna have buses explode with citizens in them, and he's like, but those are Japanese citizens. Like, no, they're American.
Yeah.
Whereas
I didn't like that
We're
at
seeing
all.
but we're seeing that transition with Smith as well. That Smith faces that a lot. That Smith
Yeah.
will be the first American to, I don't want to say infiltrate because I feel like he's going to work within the system, but he's going to be the first American to represent
Accepted.
yeah.
to represent what nationalism will mean.
Yes.
What nationalism will mean if you're in an occupied territory, which is what
Well-
America is 2 times over.
Yeah, because while they're in transition, I mean, Joe's dad is legitimately fine to let Smith go. I mean, the whole thing almost seems like it's so Smith is gone. in a way, you know?
Well, that was his plan.
Yeah.
That was his plan that he assumed. No, that's not happening. Do we have anything else about the Kempe tab before we get into the big meat of the end here?
I don't.
Building destroyed.
I want the big meat of the end.
Yeah, Keto being higher up now, being a high-ranking official will
He's
be
the highest,
interesting.
right?
Yeah, because they all died.
Alive?
Yeah.
He's
Keto's
the
in charge of
lone
the Kempe.
survivor.
Keto's in charge of the Kempe tie, which doesn't bode well for the resistance, but it does actually bode well for the livability
Yes.
of the
Oh.
average citizen.
Yes. Actually, the thing I thought of, and let me know if you guys thought it too, when Childen and Ed are on the bus, I'm like, is that one of those buses that has stuff on it?
That would be.
Oh my
I don't think so,
gosh.
because I think those are in a separate area, but I had that moment as soon as them on a bus, I'm like, oh, those
they gonna
buses
get blown
with
up?
I know, right?
stuff. Ah!
They were pretty.
I mean,
They're
I'm
pretty
glad
far
they
into
didn't
the
show
neutral
that,
zone.
but that would have been kind of epic. Like it like in a messed up
I just
way.
had a heightened experience in watching this.
Yeah, you did.
I'm like, oh my goodness.
Like,
have anything
literally,
going?
like anything could happen.
Do we have anything going down in the chat?
No, you guys are really quiet. If you guys are watching this live, chime in. If you're watching this later, comment down below. I know this is a little bit, quite sometime after the episode's aired, but whatever. Let us know your thoughts on the final episode and like your predictions for season 3. Just the chat room so far, only one person saying Alec was like they agreed to some of our sentiments, but
Well,
other
thanks,
people
Thank
please
you.
chime in and thank you for saying something. But I think that was kind of it.
So Keto and Tagami survive an explosion.
But with those two, oh, there you go. With those two as well, it might be a more peaceful, realistic future in terms of them being more level-headed. Because
Yeah,
Tagomi would be
definitely.
like, "Whoa, let's keep it
Yeah,
not
let's keep it
crazy."
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's a chill bro.
Yes.
He also.
So, bro.
Actually, he should be higher up in rank in a way too if other
I
people
wonder-
are gone.
Well, I think he's stage trade minister. I don't understand the hierarchy.
I don't.
Of,
We
No.
don't know.
It's also
I
a
need to see an
monarchy,
org
so
chart.
I do
Yeah.
need.
Can we
I
have
think
a
it's
flow chart
2
and
separate
everything?
flow charts for the organizational
Yeah.
structure of
Both.
both the
Yeah.
Reich
Yes.
and the Empire.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
I
The
have no-
Empire.
Yeah.
We
Oh,
hear-
when they
yeah,
did the
Japanese.
speech, did anybody
I
think
just
for
love
the,
that.
the speech in Berlin, anybody else think I was like, this looks like Star Wars?
It was.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was,
It
yeah,
was-
it was. In the behind the scenes, it talked about how that space was built
Yeah.
for, it was like 150,000, I think, stormtroopers, something crazy.
And
Well,
the
it's the
fact they said
Volkswagen.
stormtroopers too, and I'm like,
Well, that's where it came from.
I'm just laughing.
That it was the Volkswagen is
Yeah.
a stadium for a leader to speak, and it's
Yeah.
ridiculous. I'm actually going to look at the Wikipedia for it. It's probably 150,000 people. Mm-hmm. That it's,
I think that's what the behind the scenes said about I think it was 150,000 stormtroopers for Star Wars.
Yeah.
that makes sense. How
But-
like
Well, and that's when he said that we can fit 50,000 more.
Oh yeah, and if
Yeah.
you want to let
If you want to let
civilians in too.
yeah, and he's let them come.
Yes.
let them
Dun,
come,
dun,
and then
dun.
they'll all watch me on the television.
Yes.
Yeah.
Although time difference, depending on, because it seems like Nazi Germany had a huge Reich spanning like 5 different time zones. Like there had to be somebody somewhere that's just asleep and wakes up and be like, wait, what? Everything just happened.
Rebroadcast? What?
Everything just
No,
happened.
because think about how big America is, like landmass versus Europe. Like,
Well, I'm saying if he were speaking at 5 p.m. in Berlin, it would be a time here that wouldn't be nice.
oh,
Like,
here. Oh,
Here,
yeah, okay.
at least,
I was only thinking.
here it'd be like 8
Helen
o'clock
was
in the
watching it
morning.
with her kids, though.
yeah,
But she's
well,
in the. I have no.
that's
She's
one
in the
thing.
know,
Don't you just like
sort
if
of.
the TV's
No, she
on,
didn't
like
know
that's
that.
what it is.
Wait, what?
Like if the TV's on, you're watching the Reich.
There is that it's state.
Well,
it's
I think
state-run
it was
TV.
the same time period as the crime drama that was very popular, and that's the other thing they were talking about too. That
Oh, really?
People were watching already because it was a very popular
okay.
television program that was on. It was American Reich, like the cop
Okay.
show, and
Yeah.
so they were saying like, oh no, a bunch of people are already watching TV. Like they weren't saying like, oh no, American Reich. Sorry, is when the Resistance did the TV broadcast.
Yes.
But that
Yes.
was good timing too.
That was also great timing. I also just want.
So
I also.
I was sad he died.
I
I
also.
know, like, why couldn't they just question him?
Nope.
No. They had to
And what
kill
about
that
his wife?
guy.
Like,
Hopefully
they never
released.
showed her.
And do you think she was actually pregnant? I don't think so. I think they were lying. But hard to say.
I don't know either. It's
Probably
all,
not.
It all kind of comes to a head very
Yeah.
quickly, so we have to. We can kind of get
Yes.
through it. By the way, I want to see webisodes of American Reich. Just give me a little. Give me a little bit.
No thanks.
Just give me a little. You just gotta film enough so you always have it. You might as well just put that out separately. I'm available to direct episodes of American Reich. Someone's gonna isolate that and put it in the. Take it completely out of context.
Yeah,
Probably.
the NSA.
Yeah.
Now we're really gonna
So the
get
other big
marked.
meat of it.
So the other big meat of it is Keto, Takami. They go to Berlin. They show the bikini, or I think just Smith.
Just the footage.
Just
Then
well,
Smith.
they go to New York to show it to Smith.
Yes.
Yes.
And then Smith goes to Berlin
Yes.
to show it to Himmler.
Well, because he's like, leave it with me, and then I'm like, oh, I don't know, that's a good idea.
I don't know.
But he takes it with him and does.
But
good
he takes it with him because
Yeah.
he doesn't. He, as someone who was an American, a true American, someone
Yeah.
who was there before it was occupied, would
And they showed that flashback.
would know what it meant
Yes.
to be subjugated versus destroyed,
Yes.
which is a bleak reality to live in.
Oh
Right?
But
Those are your options?
Those are your options to be
Yay.
subjugated or destroyed.
yeah.
I mean, I
I
guess
wonder
we
Thomas turned himself in.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously
yes.
that's not why,
But Smith goes to Himmler, shows him the tape, and bluffs. Says, nope, Japan's got a nuke. It's huge.
It's
Huge.
huge.
It was maybe made a few years ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
And
they believe it, sure.
And just built it up where I also think the nuclear strength of our 1962 might be way better than the nuclear strength of their 1962.
Yeah, because
I think so.
we won the war.
Yeah, because it took more
mean-
for America and the Allies to win the war against Japan than it would.
Yeah.
Right.
Because like they
Well,
obviously.
then I like their play too of having the secret notebook of like, here, guess what? We have a traitor in our midst. Like that
Yep.
play. That's where I felt dumb. Of like, oh yeah, because they did the interrogating. Now you have the evidence and
Yep. That he's just
Planning.
putting it all together, hanging out with Himmler,
yeah.
and he gets Huseman. Gets Huseman out of there, and he flips Joe, which
It's that kind of. Well, why did he take?
he told Joe. He finally revealed to Joe that Juliana's still alive,
Yes.
which is gonna send Joe, who's already full Nazi at this point, it's gonna send Joe back to New
the
York.
arm-
New
Armband
Nazi
and
though.
everything.
He's kind of new Nazi like Nicole. Like he's not old
he's
idealist.
still full blown Nazi,
Yeah. Oh,
he's
armband
Nazi.
and brown shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I want to say he's a little more new Nazi the way Nicole is. Of like, we're not exactly like that. Because he said, "I believe in a person, not a cause."
Yeah.
So he's not
agree
necessarily
with-
and
yeah.
he liked his father's concept, but he didn't like.
But that's the
methods.
thing. His
To
dad
extreme.
was the person he believed in.
Yeah.
Until,
Yeah.
well, really, it's Juliana. It's always Juliana.
Yeah.
And isn't Smith
gonna
lucky
make
though? Smith lucky that the guy he talks to is reasonable enough to like proceed with that information.
There seemed to be like a familiarity there.
Yeah.
I thought
Well,
like
okay.
I don't think that was a risk or a gamble for him. I
Okay.
think Smith knew if he called and got that guy, it would be fine.
Okay.
I mean, the way that their conversation went,
He
that's
seems
kind
to
of the
have-
way
he seems to
I
have
took
dealt
it.
with Berlin enough
Okay.
Yeah.
to know
Yeah.
those inner workings.
He's been there before. I mean, it's
But we talked
So
talked about the
Was
talked about
Joe
the two.
arrested too? He was taken away as well.
He's taken away, but I think they'll let him out.
Okay.
I
I
do
think
too.
under a Smith rule, they'll let him out.
But do you think Smith is going to be in charge?
No,
I
they
don't
would
either.
never let. They wouldn't.
Not an American.
They wouldn't let
Exactly.
an American. They wouldn't have let an American run the Reich.
He might be even higher though in America later.
He's gonna run America.
Actually, isn't?
Oh,
yeah.
he,
yeah.
he was already pretty close to running America.
Yeah, he was probably
He's-
almost like he was in the top 10 probably.
Yeah, he's absolutely running America.
Yeah.
But he's probably like a top 5 of the whole Reich at this
Oh,
point.
Yeah.
do you think that he's going to go rogue?
I wondered.
Like
Do we-
with America, and then they're going to
That
win
sound-
the war?
That sounds like a question
That'd be exciting.
for predictions.
It is a question for prediction.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV
I don't know. Was there anything else too?
prediction.
No, we
Those are all
jumped,
the
we
major
jumped
points.
around. Like there were the two big reveals that we had
Yeah.
already talked about at the very end. So,
Wow, those lights were like...
That was all over those lights
It
were
always
happening.
makes me think of Halloween. Every time we have predictions.
So,
So.
Joe, what do we think he does?
Oh. Do we have to guess?
He runs to New York. and-
Yeah,
he
like,
runs
is
to
this
New
a
York-
question?
He runs to New York to be with Juliana.
Or tries to.
Yes.
Like,
I
if
see.
But he'll,
he
but
might
he'll do
get...
whatever he says. He'll say whatever he can to Smith to get let out because he is detained at the moment.
But that's what I mean. I don't think it's up to Smith to let him out.
Well,
True, because
So-
it's in Berlin.
Other question, the question that brought us to
think Joe is
predictions.
going to do everything he can to get to New York. I think it's
Maybe-
going to be harder than... Like, I don't think they're just going to satisfy me and maybe you guys and everybody else watching by letting Joe just go to New York.
Of course not. I think he's gonna have to do. I think he's gonna have to do a lot of Nazi stuff.
Maybe Nicole
Yeah.
will help him get out.
Yeah, right. For
Nicole
another
is
woman?
definitely- But like,
No, not
He's-
to help him get out for that, but just to help him get out to get out.
and
Oh,
then,
I see.
And
Well,
then be
I'm-
heartbroken
but-
that he's. Well,
Yeah,
she
but
seems to be open. With,
I think he'll get out of being detained. I don't think he'll get out of Berlin easily.
I think he'll
And I
have
don't
to-
think Nicole's going to help him get out of Berlin.
I think he'll have to do a
Well-
lot of bad stuff to get
Yeah.
out of Berlin to New York to see Juliana, who at this moment isn't in New York.
Yeah.
But that by the time he
Wah,
actually
wah.
sees Juliana, he'll be the Nazi from the film. That's my prediction. I
yeah.
also think Nicole is a part of a new guard that's way young, but will eventually take over this party and be way more liberal.
Yes.
Way more
absolutely.
liberal than you or I could ever possibly conjure up when it comes to the word Nazi.
Yes.
I also think that the Kitos and Tsakamis will make the Pacific states way more habitable.
Yes.
However, I think the resistance is a literal iceberg that we literally don't understand. We don't understand that the resistance, all we've ever seen of the resistance is like this much.
Well,
Well, we just-
especially with Trudy. I mean, and I know you said, like, obviously the resistance isn't the one that killed her or actually killed her, if since we don't really know if she's a different version of herself or
We know
the
we're
same
seeing
one.
a Trudy.
right.
And in this world, if we believe in the multiverse theory,
Right.
there are infinite Trudys.
Now, question from the chat room. Killian said, "Now that the man in the High Castle has explained stuff to Juliana, don't you think it will affect Juliana's freedom to make decisions as she has done so thus far?" Because, like,
Yes?
she
Definitely.
now goes, "Wait, I did everything, and you orchestrated that," and then she's all pissed about it.
But the thing is, he didn't really orchestrate it. I mean, he did, but he didn't. Like, she's still the one that made every choice she made. He just knew from watching her for so long in these films that she would make those
He had
choices. They
reasonable
were still her
predictions.
choices.
Yeah.
And I think similar to how on a date in most of the universes, which once again, let's assume the universes are infinite. On one date in 1962, there is an event that happens
Yeah.
that I think that would stand to reason that all of those universes are tied together by a lot of constants, and she seems to be one of those constants.
I think
And
you pretty much said that. Yeah.
Her and how she deals with stuff, and how she deal with essentially a maze that seems to have been set up for her.
Yeah.
I think he just studied her, but I think he also studied every universe he could possibly get his hands on to orchestrate. I guess he's trying to get his 1962 as close to the best one as possible. If you
Sure.
watch Community, they talk about the timeline episode, where in the timeline episode there's the darkest timeline. In his mind, he's living the darkest timeline, and he's trying to
Yeah.
to bridge in some way to another one, or at least make the darkest timeline not as bad.
And as we found out, which I was, how you said you felt so many sort of like aha moments when we find out that, not Trudy, oh my gosh, Juliana's the one that shoots Dixon. And then he shows her that photo again of him in the Nazi uniform, and it's like, whoa, like, oh
That
yeah, like that's where we
everything's-
started, in a way.
Well,
And-
that's also how I feel that with with Frank headed to the neutrals, or Frank's not headed to the neutrals. Never mind. That's not where Frank's headed. But there's
Bye, Frank.
Oh, do we think Frank's alive?
I
No
think-
body, no proof.
I think Frank's alive.
I think Frank and Sarah. I hope she's
I think
alive too,
Sarah's
but
not
she
alive.
might.
I don't think
die.
she's alive.
I
think she served her purpose, and
I think the film from the very first season.
all we have to do is look at IMDb, see if she's got more.
No,
Well,
that's
they haven't shot
cheating.
anything yet. I think the film we saw in the very first season
Yeah.
is still a truth that can be revealed.
Okay.
Okay.
So I think that'll be a looming clock to all of us. That there still can be a nuclear bomb that will level San Francisco. There can still be things that'll put Frank, Juliana, and Joe all in New York.
See,
a Nazi Joe.
I don't think so, because otherwise it wouldn't have been so significant for the Man in the High Castle to get Juliana to make that reality come to life. Like he was saying, like in every other version, San Francisco goes.
Got it.
So that's why it had to be you.
We are fighting against this film. That I think that we've fought against this film and it's happening.
That was my understanding. Was the Man in the High Castle was like, it had to be you. It had to be this way because in all of the things I watched with you in it, this film is the only way it happened with San Francisco staying
Not being
afloat.
destroyed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Speak of a mind F though. That means she has no free. She must feel like once that's explained to her that she has no free will.
Well,
Right.
yeah.
And she's so alone.
Every
she's so
decision she
incredibly
makes
alone.
is important and has a consequence.
And the thing that's crazy is she's gonna make it anyways.
Yeah.
That's what you know what I mean?
Well, and that's
But it is one of those where it's like that kind of like mind-blowing moment of like, none of my decisions are my own because I've been this chosen one.
But at the same time, all of my decisions are my own because
Yeah.
I'm preordained.
I'm chosen because of the decisions I
I'm
make.
preordained to make
Yeah.
the decisions that are ultimately not my own as I determine them.
Right.
I think that might be a good place to wrap us up. I can't
Yeah.
wait for season 3. I think I'm going to pick up this
Yes.
book. In the meantime,
Sure.
starting
I said
with
that
Cary,
between season 1 and 2, and I didn't do it. So
I might actually try to read the book. I've done that for a few of my other shows, so maybe book on tape. It'll go by faster. My name is Carrie Lane. You can find me online at Carrie D. Lane, and thank you so much for chatting with us, and we'll see you for next season.
yeah, Courtney Henderson. You can find me on Instagram or Twitter at Cohen, Couhen. Thanks for joining us.
And I'm on Twitter almost exclusively. You can find me at Steve Kaufman. That is KAUFMANN. I'm not even going to move from this chair because coming up, I'm going to cover the winter finale of Gotham. Yes, that happened last week. Scheduling snafus, it happens. We're doing it, and we're doing it next. So stick around with us. And thanks for joining us, citizens.
See you.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.